So imagine signing a purchase order for a, $10 million piece of medical equipment.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge commitment.
Right. It's top of the line. It has the potential to save hundreds of lives. And then, imagine realizing 6 months later that this single purchase has functionally bankrupted your hospital.
It's a nightmare scenario.
It really is,
Yeah.
because you just didn't understand the underlying reimbursement structures. So today, we're looking at why brilliant, highly trained medical professionals often make terrible business decisions.
Yeah, and it happens far more often than anyone inside the medical establishment actually wants to admit.
Right.
We spend years training doctors to master clinical science, right, to categorize pathology with absolute precision.
Exactly, yeah.
But then we send them into the modern healthcare ecosystem completely blind to the financial machinery operating right underneath their feet.
Kind of wild.
It is. And the best clinical skills in the world, they just cannot save a practice that is fundamentally broken on a business level.
And if you are listening to this right now, whether you are a medical student prepping for boards, a resident working 80-hour weeks, or, a young professional eyeing clinical leadership, you need to understand that machinery.
Absolutely.
That is why we are doing a deep dive today into a guiding text for this exact problem. It's excerpts from the book Radiology Business Practice, How to Succeed.
It's such a crucial read.
It really is. Our mission today is to provide you with a comprehensive, jargon-free summary of the business side of medicine. And we're using radiology as sort of the ultimate case study.
Perfect example.
Yeah, we're going to extract the most vital, operational, financial, and strategic knowledge so you can actually thrive. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Let's start with just the sheer scale of what we are dealing with. The text drops a staggering fact right out of the gate. Imaging units can make up over 50% of a hospital's capital equipment budget. 50%.
I know, it is massive. When you look at most academic hospitals, the departments of radiology, pathology, and surgery are the main revenue generators. Wow, okay.
But radiology is unique because it's also the greatest consumer of capital. And that introduces a structural challenge right away.
Right.
Because if you're going to work in an academic medical center, an AMC, you have to understand the fundamental dichotomy of how they're built.
Okay, what do you mean by dichotomy?
Well, there's a massive divide between the hospital side and the university side.
Right, but mechanically, how does that split actually work? Because from the outside, a patient just walks through a set of double doors into one big building with one name on the front. Right.
Exactly. From the patient's perspective, it's completely seamless. But on the back end, it is essentially two distinct financial engines running in parallel, aggressively protecting their own interests.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the hospital side is typically the corporate entity that employs the technologists, the nurses, the front desk personnel.
That's staff.
Exactly. And crucially, the hospital owns the physical building and the multi-million-dollar equipment.
Okay, that makes sense. So because they provide that physical infrastructure, the hospital collects what are called the technical fees for any procedure.
Okay, so that means the university side is just providing the brains, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
They employ the faculty, like the attending physicians, and they manage the research grants. So when they bill a patient, they're collecting the professional fees, right?
Right.
Which is the money paid specifically for the doctor's time and expertise in actually interpreting that scan.
Precisely. So when a patient gets an MRI, the payment from the insurance company is literally split in two.
Yeah.
The hospital gets paid for the use of the machine, and the university gets paid for the radiologist reading the results.
Okay. Yeah.
And honestly, navigating the friction between those two ledgers is sort of the first major hurdle of academic medical leadership.
Because the hospital is footing the bill for that $10 million capital budget, so they can't just buy new toys and hope for the best.
Oh, definitely not.
They need a razor-sharp strategy to ensure a return on that investment, or ROI. And the text brings up a really fascinating trap regarding capital investment that the authors call the CT slice war.
Oh, yes.
It's this ongoing technology arms race in radiology.
It's a very real phenomenon, and it perfectly illustrates how, clinical enthusiasm can just ruin a business strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The text notes that upgrading from a 16-slice CT scanner to a 64-slice scanner is genuinely critical for highly specific procedures,
Like what?
like cardiac CT angiography. When you're trying to image tiny, moving coronary arteries on a beating heart, that extra speed and resolution, it literally changes the clinical outcome.
Right, but the authors argue that jumping from a 4-slice to an 8-slice scanner just for general use doesn't radically change anything.
Exactly.
Like taking slightly thinner slices of a stationary broken bone mostly just fills up the hospital's digital archive faster, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And yet practices will go millions of dollars into debt to buy that 8-slice scanner just so they can put it on a billboard.
That's crazy.
They assume that having the newest technology automatically translates to better business, totally ignoring the fact that it doesn't change the treatment plan at all.
That feels like buying the latest smartphone just for the specs.
Yes, great analogy.
Because most consumers, or in this case, referring doctors sending their patients to your clinic, they don't actually care about the exact clock speed of the microchip or the nanometer architecture.
Great. They don't care at all.
They just want to know, is the camera good? For a referring physician, they just want to know, is the diagnosis accurate? And can I get the written report by 5 o'clock today?
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how this ties into the core concept of a differentiation strategy.
Okay, tell me more.
So, successful practices differentiate themselves by offering tangible, easily understood value, rather than just bragging about technical specifications that the referring doctors don't even care about.
Gotcha.
The authors give a couple of great examples of true differentiation. Instead of marketing the Tesla strength of a magnet, a practice might market a highly specific service.
Like what kind of service?
Like offering an ultrasound-guided 3D model of a 24-week fetus for expectant mothers.
Oh, wow.
Right. That is a service the patient instantly understands and actually demands.
Yeah, or something purely operational, like providing same-day appointments and same-day results for screening mammography.
Yes, exactly.
Because that relieves extreme anxiety for the patient.
Yeah.
And it makes the referring primary care doctor look highly responsive.
Spot on. And that builds unshakable loyalty. But, balancing those new services with equipment costs introduces the dangerous trap of short-term ROI.
Okay, walk me through that.
Let's say your clinic has an MRI machine that is fully depreciated, meaning you've completely paid off the loan.
Nice.
Every scan you do on that old machine is almost pure profit because you have zero equipment debt dragging down your balance sheet.
Right, so if I'm managing that clinic, my instinct is to run that paid-off machine into the ground. Like, why would I take out a new multi-million-dollar loan when I'm currently printing money?
Because you are coasting on obsolescence.
Oof.
I mean, your short-term return on investment looks incredible on paper this quarter, but long-term. Eventually, referring physicians will realize your scan times are 20 minutes slower than the competitor down the street.
Where your image quality is lagging.
Exactly. And they will slowly start sending their patients elsewhere. The competitor's short-term ROI might be terrible because they just took on massive debt for a new machine, but their long-term strategy will capture your entire market share.
So you have to constantly manage for next year's referral volume, not just this month's balance sheet.
Yes, you always have to look ahead.
But once you do successfully differentiate your clinic, upgrade your tech, and start making real money, you create an entirely new problem, which is envy.
Oh, yeah. The green-eyed monster.
Suddenly, every other department in the hospital looks at Radiology's profit margins, and they want to buy their own machines.
Turf issues. They are a classic bitter struggle in modern medicine.
I bet.
As imaging has become more central to diagnosis, non-radiologists naturally want to capture that technical fee revenue we talked about.
Right. Cardiologists want to buy their own echocardiogram machines.
Yep. Obstetricians want to run their own ultrasound clinics.
My knee-jerk reaction, if I'm the head of radiology, is to just fight them. I'd go to the hospital board and say, hey, imaging belongs to us. Tell cardiology to stay in their lane. Why would I ever want to give up that territory?
Because it is almost always a losing battle. Attempting to monopolize technology just alienates your best referring physicians.
Oh, that makes sense.
The text outlines a much smarter, highly strategic model to handle this, which is collaborative expansion through cross-department joint hires.
Okay, walk me through the human element of a joint hire. Like, how does that practically function for the doctor involved?
It involves splitting the physician's full-time equivalent, or FTE, funding.
Okay.
So let's say you hire a cardiologist who specializes in cardiac nuclear studies. The radiology department pays half their salary, and cardiology pays the other half.
Got it.
This doctor essentially wears two hats. In the morning, they're sitting in radiology reading the imaging scans. The technical and professional revenue generated from the actual imaging procedure accrues to the radiology department.
Okay, and the afternoon.
In the afternoon, they're sitting in the cardiology clinic doing patient consultations based on those scans. The revenue from the clinical visit accrues to cardiology.
Wow, that perfectly aligns the financial incentives.
It really does.
Both departments benefit from higher volume. No one is fighting over the technical fees. And crucially, the radiology department maintains quality control over the equipment and the imaging protocols.
It creates a symbiotic relationship instead of a competitive one.
Yeah.
And by securing those high-volume, routine imaging lines, it frees up the radiology department's capital to focus on the future of the field. Because we are rapidly moving from imaging static anatomy to imaging actual biological processes in real time.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting because the authors dive into molecular and functional imaging.
Oh, this stuff is wild.
Yeah, they mention using PET-CT scanners with FDG radio tracers to predict how a patient will respond to a specific chemotherapy regimen before they even finish the treatment.
Incredible technology.
Or using 7 Tesla MR microscopy, which is just incredibly powerful, to map abnormal neural connections in patients with schizophrenia.
Yes.
But from a business perspective, how do you justify a 7 Tesla MRI? Does imaging biological processes generate more revenue right away, or is it just a giant capital sink?
Initially, it's always a massive capital sink.
Yeah, I figured.
Machines like a 7 Tesla MRI are not typically bought to generate immediate clinical billables. They are usually funded by research grants on the university side of the AMC ledger we discussed earlier.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
The business strategy here is prestige and long-term capability. By housing the most advanced research tools, you attract the top-tier specialists.
Right.
And eventually, as the technology matures, those research applications transition into standard, highly reimbursed clinical procedures.
But, I mean, all these brilliant joint ventures and hyper-advanced scanners don't mean anything if the clinic can't actually make payroll on Friday, right?
Exactly.
You can have the most advanced PET-CT in the state, but if your bank account is empty, you're out of business.
This is perhaps the most vital operational lesson in the text. Profit is fundamentally different from cash.
Let's dig into that.
You can have a highly profitable business on paper, meaning you performed and billed for millions of dollars of scans this month. But if you do not have the actual cash liquidity in your bank account, your business will fail instantly.
Which introduces the dreaded concept of accounts receivable, or AR.
Yes. The bane of every medical director's existence.
Right, because AR represents the money owed to you by insurance companies and patients.
Yeah.
If your billing department is inefficient, if they code procedures incorrectly or they just forget to get prior authorizations, the insurance companies will deny the claims.
Exactly.
So your AR balloons, your on-paper profit looks amazing, but your cash flow completely dries up.
And for a new freestanding imaging practice, managing cash flow is terrifying because your startup costs are astronomical.
Oh, yeah.
You are almost guaranteed to be heavily leveraged with bank loans. So to mitigate that upfront risk, the text highlights a creative financial solution for equipment leasing called the per-click fee model.
Oh, this essentially operates like cloud computing for medical devices, right?
Oh, yeah. How so?
Like if a tech startup needs massive server power, they don't buy a $10 million server farm. They use something like AWS and just pay for the data they actually use.
That is a brilliant analogy. Yeah, instead of taking out a massive fixed loan to buy an MRI machine outright, you enter an agreement with the manufacturer.
Right.
They install the machine in your clinic, but you only pay them a set fee, a click, every single time you actually scan a patient.
Wow. So if a blizzard hits, your clinic is empty for 3 days, and you only scan 5 patients all week, your equipment cost that week automatically drops to match.
Exactly.
It turns a terrifying fixed capital cost into a flexible operational cost.
It perfectly aligns your expenses with your actual revenue stream, which is just vital for surviving those early, volatile years of a new practice.
Okay, so we know how to measure the financial health of the machines. But if you're a medical director, how do you evaluate the performance of your human doctors?
Oh, boy.
Right. Like, how do you know if Dr. A is working as hard as Dr. B? The text brings up RVUs, which I know is a term that makes most physicians groan.
Relative value units. It is the inescapable metric of American medicine.
Explain it for those who might not know.
Sure. Every single medical procedure is assigned an RVU value based on the time, mental effort, technical skill, and psychological stress required to perform it.
Okay.
So reading a highly complex brain MRI generates significantly more RVUs than reading a simple chest X-ray.
Okay, so if I'm managing a practice, it seems incredibly straightforward. At the end of the year, I just look at a doctor's total net cash collections based on their RVUs, and I hand out bonuses accordingly. The one who brought in the most cash gets the biggest check.
Easy,
Right.
right? Many practices do exactly that, but the authors strongly warn against it.
Really? Why?
This raises an important question, right? Relying entirely on net cash collections to judge a physician destroys practice morale because it violates a core tenet of management called the controllability principle.
Wait, break that down for me. What is the controllability principle?
This principle states that a worker should only be judged on metrics they can actually control.
Okay.
A radiologist sitting in a reading room has absolutely no control over the payer mix of the hospital.
Oh, I see.
Right. They do not control whether the scan they are reading belongs to a patient with top-tier private insurance that pays instantly or a patient with no insurance at all.
Right.
Furthermore, they do not control how aggressively the billing department chases down claim denials.
Ah, I see the problem. So Dr. A could work 80 hours a week, read 1,000 complex scans,
Yeah.
and generate massive RVUs. But if they happen to be assigned to a clinic that serves uninsured patients, or if the billing department just drops the ball on their claims, their actual cash collections will be terrible.
Exactly. And if you tie Dr. A's bonus to that cash collection, you're basically punishing them for administrative failures totally outside their control.
That's super unfair.
It's fundamentally unfair. And it perversely incentivizes doctors to cherry-pick patients with good insurance rather than focusing on doing good medical work.
Wow.
A smart leader designs performance metrics based on total RVUs generated or turnaround times, things the doctor actually controls in the reading room.
So you've optimized your internal metrics, morale is high, your machines are leased efficiently.
Things are looking good.
But then you step outside your clinic and you hit a brick wall of external regulations.
Always.
Let's look at the legal landscape, starting with managed care organizations, or MCOs, and the concept of the loss leader.
Okay, so in most major markets, MCOs control roughly 30% of the insured patient population.
That's a huge chunk.
It is. A freestanding imaging practice simply cannot survive without access to those patients. But negotiating contracts with MCOs requires ruthless strategic thinking because they will often force you to accept a loss leader.
And a loss leader is a service you intentionally provide at a financial deficit, right?
Exactly.
The text mentions plain basic x-rays and screening mammography. Like, the MCO reimbursement rate for those is often so low it doesn't even cover the overhead of keeping the lights on in the clinic.
That's right. You are actively losing money every time you perform one.
Wait, if an MCO controls 30% of your market, and they can legally force you to take a loss on basic services just to get the profitable contracts, I mean, that feels borderline like extortion.
It feels that way, yeah.
Why would any rational business owner sign that contract?
Because it is the cost of entry. If you refuse to do the money-losing basic x-rays, the MCO will completely exclude you from their network.
Oh, well.
That means you lose all of their highly profitable outpatient MRI and CT volume. You intentionally absorb the loss on the x-rays to get the patients in the door for the expensive, high-margin scans.
It's a trade-off.
A big one. But you have to monitor your volume mix obsessively to ensure the profitable services actually offset the losses.
Speaking of heavily monitored regulations, if you are listening to this and dreaming of opening your own orthopedic or multi-specialty clinic one day, pay close attention to this next part.
Yes, very important.
Because getting this wrong doesn't just mean a slap on the wrist, it means committing federal fraud. The Stark Law.
Yeah, the Stark Law, named after Congressman Pete Stark. It's a highly complex, aggressively enforced set of regulations designed to prevent physician self-referral.
Okay, what's the basic idea?
The fundamental premise is straightforward. A doctor should not be able to financially benefit from referring a patient to a medical facility that the doctor has an ownership stake in.
Which makes perfect sense clinically. I mean, if an orthopedic surgeon also happens to own the MRI scanner down the hall, suddenly they have a massive financial incentive to overprescribe unnecessary MRIs for every patient with a mild muscle ache.
Exactly.
They're basically treating their prescription pad like a cash register.
And the government recognized that exact danger. The penalties for violating Stark Law are severe. We're talking crippling fines, permanent exclusion from Medicare billing, and even criminal charges.
Scary stuff.
Very. However, there are roughly 35 specific legal exceptions For anyone looking to build a multi-specialty practice, the most critical one is the in-office ancillary services exception.
Okay, how does a clinic legally use that loophole?
Well, it allows a group practice to refer patients for imaging within their own offices, provided they meet incredibly strict criteria regarding how the corporate group is structured, how the services are billed under a single tax ID, and exactly where the equipment is physically located in relation to the main medical practice.
Wow, that sounds dense.
It is what allows a large orthopedics group to legally own their own X-ray machines. But the compliance rules are dizzyingly dense. The text is explicit here. Never attempt to navigate a Stark Law exception without specialized, high-tier healthcare legal counsel.
Because the legal landscape is only getting more complicated.
Right.
Especially when you look at the final frontier practice expansion, which is teleradiology.
Oh, absolutely.
Reading scans remotely completely shatters the traditional geographic boundaries of medicine.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, teleradiology is just a logistical miracle.
Yeah.
You no longer need a highly specialized pediatric neuroradiologist physically sitting in a rural hospital in Idaho.
Right.
They can be sitting in Baltimore or even Sydney, Australia, providing real-time subspecialty expertise to our rural trauma center at 2 in the morning. The text outlines several models, from solo practitioners acting as remote locum tenens to massive corporate global networks providing overnight overreads.
But the regulatory hurdles to read a scan across state lines, let alone international borders, must be a complete nightmare.
Oh, they are monumental. First is medical licensure. A doctor practicing teleradiology must hold an active, paid medical license, not just in the state where they are physically sitting, but in every single state where their patients reside.
Are you serious?
Totally serious. If a global network assigns you to read emergency room scans for hospitals in 5 different states, you need 5 different medical licenses, and you must pass the credentialing board at every single one of those specific hospitals.
That sounds exhausting. And then when you start sending patient data internationally, you hit IPIA compliance.
Yep.
Like you aren't just jumping on a standard Zoom call. Ensuring the security of protected health information as it bounces across global servers requires military-grade, heavily redundant IT infrastructure.
Exactly. Furthermore, you have to secure malpractice insurance that specifically covers interstate or international practice, which is exceptionally expensive.
I can imagine.
The core takeaway from the text is simple. Never cut corners when setting up a teleradiology infrastructure. A single international data breach or a server failure during a critical trauma read will cost your practice infinitely more in lawsuits than the high-end servers would have cost you.
So what does this all mean? We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We've explored the complex dichotomy of academic medical centers and their $10 million budgets. We've looked at the danger of the slice wars and why true differentiation is better than a vanity purchase.
Definitely.
We've discussed turning turf wars into joint hires, the absolute necessity of accounts receivable management, why you can't measure physicians on things they don't control, and the legal minefields of loss leaders and Stark Law.
It means that clinical excellence is only half of the equation for survival. The business of medicine is what builds the infrastructure that allows clinical excellence to actually reach the patient.
And understanding these business principles isn't about corporate greed. It is about ensuring your practice, your department, and your vision actually survive the brutal reality of the healthcare market.
Precisely.
Because if your business fails, you can't deliver those life-saving diagnoses to the patients who desperately need them.
To help cement these concepts, we want to leave you with a short review exercise to apply what you've learned to your own environment, but with a slight twist looking toward the future.
Okay, I love a good twist.
We've talked extensively about human doctors generating RVUs and evaluating them fairly using the controllability principle. But think about the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence in teleradiology.
Oh, wow.
Ask yourself, what happens to a clinic's financial model when the $10 million capital equipment doesn't just take the scan, but the AI inside it actually reads the scan and generates the RVU?
That is wild to think about.
If a machine becomes the primary diagnostic engine, how does that fundamentally disrupt the balance between hospital technical fees and university professional fees?
That completely flips everything we just talked about on its head. It is a brilliant question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you. Keep looking for the why behind the financials. And remember, when you finally step out of the classroom and look at that diagnostic landscape, the machinery might seem murky, but you now have the tools to understand exactly how it operates. Until next time.